Um, I am Trainer Cliff. Me and Matt have been friends for, man, it's been almost 10 years now, just about. I came to the tech juggernaut. I'm not going to go into the whole long, detailed story. If you want to hear that, then just go listen to my podcast, Tech Talk Coast to Coast, on my Stirred Up Coast to Coast podcast channel. You can find that on most of my signatures. Anyway, the short story is me and Matt met on one of my listservs, found out that we had similar interests, and when he launched the tech juggernaut TTJ, he asked me to come on board to help him teach. At first, I was hesitant because he was teaching the iPad, which I had no experience with. So you can say that I had some quote unquote on the job training with that. But I delved right into it. And after the first season, I made it a point to make sure I could master it. One, because it was another device that I could have access to. And two, so I could know more than that. Anyway, we joke like that all the time because we're brothers in Christ and I consider him a great friend. But the reason for me helping out with these classes is I wanted to give back to the community that was, for lack of a better term, lacking back in 2011, 2012 when I first got my iPhone. There was no TTJ back then. There was not a whole lot of listservs to get on. Google didn't know much. There was no accessibility team at Apple. It was maybe in the process of being launched or built, but it wasn't available to the public. So back then I had to teach myself. I had to, trial and error, mess up and start over. So I wanted to make sure that I was a part of a platform that gave you guys help. So you didn't have to go asking questions. So you didn't have to throw your iOS device across the room or through a window. So you didn't have to get frustrated. So I've been using, like I said, iOS devices since 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. Started out with an iPhone 4, then went to a 4S, and have gotten every new iPhone since then, except the iPhone 8. I did not get that, but I have renewed every year. I've owned probably every Mac under the sun except the Mac Pro. Right now, I'm using an iMac 24-inch, and that's what I'll be using to teach more with the Mac class in January. What else? I just like teaching because it's part of my, you know, my my background, I guess. I wrestled, I coached wrestling, I coached track, I coached cross country, and I also have, a beautiful wife and 4 kids that live at home. I have 9 kids total, but I have 4 that are still in the house. And I teach them on a daily basis about, life stuff and all that. But I said all that to say this. When you get frustrated, just take a step back and take your time, start from the basics and the fundamentals. That's what we had to do as new users back in 2009, 10, 11, and 12. But it's not an overnight process with iOS or the Mac. Any Apple product you use is not going to be overnight. And for lack of I don't like to talk about that other platform a lot. But Windows, you're not going to learn that overnight either. You didn't learn that overnight at all. No platform you ever learned was overnight. It wasn't a quick fix. These things take time. But my passion for teaching this class for free 99, as I like to call it, is the fact that these resources were not available back then, and we want to make sure every year until God says otherwise that these classes will be free from September to May, teaching you what you don't know and learning from you on the way. As Trainer Lynn said last week, we're always learning new stuff from different people in these classes. We don't know everything, and we don't claim to. We know a lot, but we don't know it all. We're always learning, and we're always willing to learn, and we like to take constructive criticism as well. So, like I said, I have a podcast, Tech Talk Coast to Coast. I also have my Crown Jewel podcast, which is Sports Talk Coast to Coast. Right now, we're doing a show every week. And I also have my Christian podcast, CWWC Coast to Coast Ministry. So you can find all that on my Stirred Up Coast to Coast channel at STURITUP Coast to Coast, the number 2, not the word 2, on Apple Podcasts. So I'll throw it back over to Matt so we can get started teaching, and maybe we can actually learn something today.
I thank you, Cliff, for taking care of that with your bio there at the beginning. So once again, I just want to welcome everybody, and we're so glad to have all of you here. And we are going to continue with our discussions of voiceover, and we're going to start out with a discussion about voiceover settings, because we have not yet talked about that. We left off the other day talking about the rotor. Just to review, is very, very important to navigating with voiceover. I do suggest reviewing those the information on the rotor. I think it's very, very important. In today's class, we're going to be talking about a couple of things. As I mentioned, we're going to start out by talking about settings for voiceover. We're not going to go through all the settings. That would be a very, very long process, and it would be more than we need to do. Here's what we have. We're going to do settings, and then we're going to talk about predictable patterns in apps, and we're going to talk about a couple of apps where we can actually sort of explore those patterns, all right? So sit back, relax, maybe pour yourself a drink. And we'll be on our way. For the first time, now that we have iOS 15, we can change settings on the fly, okay? That means that we can, while we are using VoiceOver, we can actually access our settings from any app, any website, anywhere. It doesn't matter. And we used to be able to do this in the rotor. You still can. As we shared the other day, you can add speaking rate, volume, hints, all these different things to the rotor. But it does tend to make the rotor very, very long to scroll through. And it's probably not the most practical thing in the world. I mean, that's personal preference. Some people like that, and that's okay. But now there is a new way to change settings on the fly from any app that you're in. So there is a feature called Quick Settings. We're going to tell you how to do it. It's 2 fingers on the screen, quadruple tap. You're going to tap 4 times with 2 fingers, all right? Again, 2-finger quadruple tap from anywhere, and that's going to allow you to instantly have access to all your VoiceOver settings. You just swipe through them, and when you find one that you want to swipe through, when you find one you want to adjust, you swipe up or down on it to change its value, or you double tap it to get more information. And these, again, are called Quick Settings. Cool. Now, it's a very, very... It's very important to understand that there's a lot of settings, a lot of VoiceOver settings that you can adjust. So this menu has many, many options in it. Let me give you just a few examples here with these quick settings. When you 2-finger quadruple tap, you can change things like speaking rate. You can change your voice. You can change the pitch option of using pitch change, the punctuation, audio ducking. I mean, tons of settings are available right here from the quick settings, and you're going to be able to customize them. We're not going to teach that today because I do feel that that's a bit more of an advanced feature, and I do think that it's probably something that when we learn how to reorder items and move items around and stuff, that will be very useful for you. But I don't think it's a day one kind of thing. So in the interim, you do have a whole bunch of options within your quick settings. And if you want to get to a place where you can access all of your settings in a traditional way, that's where you're going to launch the actual settings app. And you will find this on your home screen. Just double tap on settings, and then your VoiceOver settings are, of course, under accessibility. So you're going to go settings, and then you're going to swipe to the right with 1 finger, like we've taught you, until you find accessibility. And when you find accessibility, you're going to double tap on it. And once you've done that, we're going to swipe to VoiceOver and double tap on that. And that is traditionally where all of your settings are located. So 2 ways to access VoiceOver settings. You can do VoiceOver quick settings with that 2-finger quadruple tap from anywhere and change them on the fly. You can be on a website in Safari somewhere. You could be watching a movie. It doesn't make any difference. And you will find your quick settings with that 2-finger quadruple tap. Or the actual, using the actual settings app. Settings, accessibility, and voiceover. And there is where you'll find everything, including those commands. Remember, we taught you there's a command and gesture reference, and that will allow you to find everything you need, look up every command in existence, every gesture, every keyboard command, every, what else? Handwriting up. All of those are under the commands and the gestures. Now, this is kind of really all I wanted to say about settings. I don't think that I want to go through every setting. I will absolutely yield to the rest of the team here and see if you guys have anything you want to, discuss or comment on regarding settings. But I kind of wanted to just let you know where they are and allow you to spend some time playing with them, because there are so many that if we start doing that, I don't know how we'd prioritize one setting over another and say that this is, where you might want to start. What I can tell you about VoiceOver settings is that VoiceOver is not like your, JAWS or, your other kinds of screen readers where you have to change things in order to make it work properly. A lot of people ask me this question, and we on the team have all heard this. They'll say, what should my setting be for that? What should this be set for? And the answer is it's up to you. There is no right or wrong, and there's nothing that's going to prevent VoiceOver from working. It's designed to work. All of the settings are personal preference. Now if you ask me, what settings do you like? What's your preference? I could easily go through and tell you what I think. I could tell you what I use and why. But that's not that's not the point. Ultimately, it is up to you to decide. I will comment for our veterans, for those who have been around a while, who this is, maybe your second or third time through our VoiceOver course. I will comment for you guys on a couple of the, the newest settings. One is the quick settings option, because you can reorder those. You can remove things from quick settings, just like you can with the rotor. And another new thing that we have under settings and accessibility and VoiceOver is something called navigation style. And so for our diehard Mac users who know what interacting is, and you are familiar with that, navigation style allows you to choose from flat or grouped. And if you choose grouped, you can actually change the way VoiceOver works with your iOS device so that it looks more like a Mac, so that you have to interact with toolbars and format bars and HTML area and so forth. So for those people who are really, really used to the Mac more than iOS, you could actually change that to group instead of flat. But here again, personal preference. Mine is I like it to be flat on an iOS device. I don't mind interacting on a Mac. I'm used to that. I've done it, but I really prefer flat on iOS. That is how our sighted counterparts would see it. Everything is equal. You just touch where you want to be. If you want to be on the toolbar, you touch the toolbar. If you want to be at the the website, you just touch the middle of the screen and you have the website. You don't have to interact. So there's, some, just a few little, tips and tricks for our, our longtime students who are not new to this. For those of you who are new, I definitely would recommend leaving that on flat. Again, that's personal preference. Maybe you're coming from a Mac and you're just new to iOS, and then that's your choice. But I think for most people, you're going to find it easier to do it, in flat navigation style. These settings, there's your obvious stuff, choosing the speaking rate, adjusting the, perhaps the punctuation where, maybe we see that there's, you can actually, it's just incredible the number of options that you have. I mean, there are just tons of settings. Punctuation, is it reading every punctuation? Is it pronouncing numbers as words or as digits? I mean, all of this stuff, not to mention customizing what's in the rotor and everything. So what I would suggest you all do is play with this. Spend some time looking at your settings for VoiceOver and see what's there and ask us if you have any questions. But that is at least an overview of where to find the settings. And there are numerous other settings that we could talk about. And again, we're not going to take the time to do it, but all of your iPhone settings can be found under the Settings app, right? If you open Settings, you will find settings for changing, sound effects that you hear, or changing the brightness on your screen, or changing your wallpaper, making Wi-Fi setting changes, customizing the control center. I mean, there are just, all of your settings can be found under there. So not only do I encourage you to play with your VoiceOver settings and explore them to see what they do, but I also recommend exploring all of the settings. And, we on the team often say it's a really good idea to do that every time there is a new major update, like iOS 14 to iOS 15, because you never know what you're going to find. It is that, there's a lot to be said for the settings, and you're just going to miss out on things if you don't explore that. Basically, when you use a Windows screen reader, there are some things that are ubiquitous. There are some things that are common, right? Alt F4, that's one of those commands you want to remember if you're a Windows user, because it kind of takes place across the apps, and tab and shift tab, those kinds of things. But there are also a lot of variables. There are also a lot of things that are different, depending on what app you're using. And Windows screen readers don't tend to make it very easy for you to access things like toolbars and so on. Instead, it's doable, but it's tricky. And instead, what they expect you to do is they expect you to learn various keystrokes. And you have to learn different keystrokes for every app that you use. With Apple devices, it is much simpler than that. There are predictable patterns. Every app that you will encounter will conform to one of several predictable patterns, okay? And I can't stress this enough. The sooner you learn that, the easier it will become for you to navigate just about anything. We talked about these fundamentals, and this goes hand in hand with knowing the VoiceOver fundamentals, okay? It goes hand in hand with understanding that the left and right swipe will take you, to the previous element or to the next element. Excuse me. It goes hand in hand with knowing that a double tap will open an item. All right. It's also important to understand that there are predictable patterns to the way the screen is laid out. And the sooner we recognize that, the easier it's going to become to navigate. So just to give a couple really simple examples, and then, the next several sessions will be devoted to exploring apps and learning these things. If you open your settings that we talked about a moment ago, you will find that the various options that you can choose from, like let's say you go to settings and accessibility, okay, and then you go to VoiceOver. Now, how do you get back to the previous screen? How do you get back to the main settings screen from accessibility, or the main accessibility screen from VoiceOver settings? There is a back button on the upper left of the screen. All right, that will always be there in the Settings app. When you open Settings and you go into one of the settings options, you look for that back button in the upper left of the screen, and it will read the name of the previous item. So if you're in accessibility, it'll say settings back button, because it's going to take you back to the main settings, and it will tell you that it's a back button, and it's always located in the upper left of the screen. That is true for most apps in existence. Now, when I say that, with any of this stuff, there are always exceptions, okay? Because certain apps, especially, for example, really, really graphic intensive apps that may not work with VoiceOver anyway, really intense gaming type apps, or, those sorts of things, as well as certain apps where the developer chooses not to use Apple's standard frameworks, and they kind of choose to go it alone and go off into their own design. Those may be exceptions, but in general, most apps that you find are going to work in the same way. So if there is a sequence of steps to something and there's a back button, a way to go to the previous screen, that back button will almost always be located in the upper left of the screen. Now, similar to that, there are always exceptions, but for the most part, there are only a handful of ways that an app can be laid out. And for example, you'll have apps that I like to refer to as tabbed apps, okay? These are apps that display tabs across the bottom of the screen, okay? Now, the Settings app is not one of them, because the Settings app is basically just a list of all your settings choices, and you pick one, and it does have that back button at the upper left then. But there are many, many apps. We're going to demonstrate two of them today after the break that have tabs across the bottom of the screen. All right, the two that we're going to demonstrate are the Clock app and the Phone app. All right, two very important apps. I mean, it is, after all, an iPhone, so in spite of everything else that it can do, it still is a phone as well. And so when we find the Clock app and we open it, or the Phone app and we open that, we're going to see tabs across the bottom of the screen. All right, and again, I will demonstrate that for you. So your tabs, for example, in the Phone app, there are 5 of them across the bottom. Going from left to right, you have Favorites, Recents, Contacts, Keypad, and Voicemail. And a tab essentially then is one group of features or settings or options or functions for a particular app. So if you launch the Phone app and you literally touch the bottom of your screen, on the left, you'll find the Favorites button. And that's the Favorites tab. You double tap that and it brings you your favorites. Any phone numbers, any contacts that you have put in favorites, you will find there. And again, we're going to actually demonstrate and teach this after the break, but I'm just giving you this as an example right now. The second tab is your Recents tab. So you can double tap that and access all of your call history. And then your third tab is Contacts. So you get the idea. In a similar fashion, your Clock app has the world clock, it has the alarms tab, it has the timer, and it has the stopwatch. So you've got 4 tabs across the bottom of the screen, and we can literally touch any one of them. As we get really comfortable with VoiceOver, we can probably approximate where each tab is. And we know, well, I want the third tab, so I know that's right about here on the bottom of the screen. But even if we can't, we could always touch the bottom of the screen and then swipe left and right to go through each of the available tabs. And when we find the tab we want, we can double tap on it. And when we double tap on it, that changes everything else above it. Whatever else is on the screen now is different because that we've chosen that particular tab. So that is one kind of design for an app, okay, the tabbed app. That's the kind we're going to focus on today. But there are others, okay? There are apps that have web content as the primary focus of the app, the most obvious being Safari, the web browser, okay? But there are others, believe it or not, that use that kind of interface. There are some that present lists of choices, and then you pick one, and then you can work with it. And that would be apps like your Settings app, your Messages app, your mail app that, display list of conversations. And we're going to show you all of these over the next few classes. And you even have, other designs too then for apps that are, productivity apps that will have a big workspace that is the majority of the screen. And then they'll have like toolbars above the workspace that allow you to make choices. Really, when you think about your Notes app, which we will teach as well, that Notes app is sort of a combination of a list app and a workspace app. Because when you're in your list of notes, it's going to have the all of your notes in front of you as a list, or a gallery view, but it's still going to present them all on the screen. And then in that case, you also will find in those kinds of apps, either at the bottom right or the top right, you're going to find like a plus button. Okay, for those who can see, it's a little icon with a plus symbol. VoiceOver will often call it add or create or new, something like that. That often appears at the top right or the bottom right of the screen. And so you can double tap on that and you can start a new note or a new message or whatever it may be. And then you now have in the Notes app, you now have this workspace, okay? Big, rich text area that has buttons that are above it. And these buttons, include ways to format the text in the note or to share the note, or all these kinds of things that we're doing. But the primary focus is the edit field. So you can type your text, or you can draw if you want to be using, the Apple Pencil and drawing in a note, or using your finger to draw, whatever the case may be. But again, all kinds of different layouts, but they all fall into a few categories, and the patterns are predictable. So the longer you use your device, the more readily you will be able to identify these. The more easily it will, you'll say, oh yeah, this app, this has tabs. So I know that there's, and then I've opened a menu. I'll bet there's a back button at the top left. And, sure enough, there probably will be. So it is a great idea to explore different apps with that in mind, from the perspective of what is the pattern that this app uses. And as I said, for those who are brand new, right now this is a little vague, but we're gonna take a break here, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna demonstrate this in the phone app and the clock apps, because it's really, really easy to tell when you start actually doing that. What we're going to do is I'm gonna start with the phone app, because as I said, this is a phone, so we want to go back to basics here for a second, right? Who even uses their iPhone as a phone anymore, we're going to go ahead into the phone app. It is located in my dock. And again, you should hear everything that VoiceOver says. You'll hear Alex talking.
Home.
See
Double
that?
tap to open.
Yes.
And I'm going to tap on my phone on the lower left in the dock.
Dock. Phone. 7 new items.
Apparently I
Double
have
tap to open.
7 missed calls or something. But what we have here is we actually have a badge, and I told you about those badges, so that told me that there were 7 items. I'm going to double tap on the phone app to open it.
Selected. Phone. All. Button. 1 of 2.
Okay. Now, if we go to the bottom of the screen, we have these 5 tabs across the bottom that I was telling you about, starting at the very bottom left.
Tab bar. Favorites. Tab. 1 of 5.
And you notice that it even told me
Selected.
It even told me that there are that it's a tab bar and that there are 5. It said 1 of 5, and I just double tapped it, so you can hear now.
Selected. Favorites. Tab. 1 of 5.
That it also tells you which one is selected. Okay. If we swipe to the right, we will hear the others.
Recents. Tab. 2 of 5. Contacts. Tab. 3 of 5. Keypad. Tab. 4 of 5. Voicemail. 4 items. Tab. 5 of 5.
So all of these are across the bottom of the screen. Okay, favorites, which I currently have selected.
Selected. Favorites. Tab. 1 of 5.
And then recents.
Recents. Tab. 2 of 5.
And then contacts.
Contacts. Tab. 3 of 5.
And then
Keypad. Tab. 4 of 5.
keypad, and then
Voicemail, 4 items, tab 5 of 5.
voicemail, which has a badge. It tells me there are 4 voicemails. And if I try to swipe to the right again, you're going to hear this boundary reached sound, and it's going to repeat that tab.
Voicemail, tab 5 of 5.
Because there's nothing else there. We can't go any further to the right. So if I were, for example, to double tap on the Contacts tab.
Contacts, tab 3 of 5.
And you see, because I have used this long enough, I know right where that is, and I just tapped on it randomly rather than swiping to it. So I just double tap. And it puts me in the Contacts tab of the phone app. It is now selected. I can verify that.
Selected, Contacts, tab 3 of 5.
All right. And similarly, if I go to the right.
Keypad, tab 4 of 5.
I can double tap that. And it's selected. And now what we have at the top here.
Phone number, text field.
Is
double tap to edit.
Is a blank edit field. You don't even have to double tap to edit this. But it's just an edit field where we are expected to type in a phone number if you want to use, a 20th century method of making your phone call, right? I could start dialing numbers.
888.
Okay, just like that. And I can
delete 888.
Delete those. Now,
phone
how
number,
am I, I kind of
double tap
know.
To edit. 1.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. It'll even tell you
2. ABC.
See, it even tells you the letters on the numbers.
3.
Oh.
D.
All right, I'm just swiping to the right to go through these phone numbers. But so this is the keypad. Now, obviously we have not taught you about text entry yet. We're going to do that on Monday. No, wait a minute. Yeah, actually it's this Wednesday and possibly Monday. We'll have to continue it just depending on where we're at on time and everything. But it actually begins this Wednesday. We're going to teach you how to enter text, at least in the most basic form. We're not going to get to the really advanced stuff yet. That's later on in the course. But by Wednesday, we will at least teach you the very basics of entering text. So you'll know you can actually do the same thing you do anywhere else on your screen. You can tap once to bring focus to a digit here.
8. TUV. 5. JKL.
Whatever. And then you just double tap to actually insert that number. So if I double tap right now, it'll insert a 5.
4.
Oops, I'm sorry. I have direct touch typing,
5.
so I have to think differently.
JKL.
Now if I double tap, it'll
5.
There, it inserted a 5.
5.
Okay. But I have direct touch typing, so I can
9. 8. 5. 5. 4. 7. 5.
see, just like that. You get used to direct touch as you progress. But again, we're going to teach that later. That's not going to be this Wednesday. This Wednesday is just going to be very basics of text entry.
Delete.
Let me delete
5. 7. 4. 5. 5. 8. 9.
Delete.
5. 5. 4. 4.
Okay.
Okay.
But you can, yes, in a lot of cases, you can actually hold your finger down to keep deleting. So that's the keypad. And once you've entered a number in the keypad, there is going to be a call button.
Call button.
Which appears kind of right in the middle of the screen above the tabs.
Call button.
Or you could find it by
pound.
Touching the pound sign and swiping to the right.
Call button.
Or you could touch a tab and swipe to the left.
Tab bar. Favorites. Call button.
All right, so you can get to that however you want. And the edit field at the top of the screen will always reflect the phone number that you have entered. So if I start to dial a phone number here, we'll just do
800.
We'll put in
6 9 2 7 5 3.
Right, that's the number for Apple we just dialed, 800 my Apple. If you touch the top of the screen where that edit field was,
phone number 800-692-7753, text field.
Okay, and that's
Apple Incorporated.
If I swipe to the right, it even tells me that that's Apple Incorporated because I have that in my contacts. So if you want to verify what phone number you've entered, you just touch the top left of the screen there, below the status bar, of course, and that's going to read to you what you have entered. And then if we
call button, call button.
And you can't hear the calling, I don't think. You don't hear that, right?
No.
Okay, because it's coming out of the earpiece.
Cellular.
But
4
you do hear
4
that
bars.
again now, right? You
Signal
heard it say
strength 1.
cellular and all that, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So yeah, you wouldn't hear the call, but it did call Apple when I double tapped on the call button. And the magic tap that we taught you about on Wednesday of last week, the magic tap applies to the phone app. So when I'm on that call with Apple, I don't have to locate the end button. I can simply 2-finger double tap to hang up the call. And if I receive a phone call, if the phone rings, I can do a 2-finger double tap to answer the call as well. We are going to talk if there's time. If not, we'll do it on Wednesday, but I think there'll be time. We are going to talk about in-call options, okay? But right now I'm just orienting you to the phone app from the perspective of these tabs. Let's change tabs. Let's go to contacts.
Tab bar. Contacts. Tab.
Okay. Now, and we're going to, in a minute after I do a little demo here, we're going to take a pause from demos and we're going to talk about the contacts a little bit because we got to get on our soapbox about contact information. But before we do that, let me just demo this a little. If I touch, now that I'm in the contacts tab, everything else on the screen above the tab bar has changed. So if I touch the top left of the screen where I previously had a phone number edit field, I no longer see that.
Search field.
What I have
Add button. Contacts heading
is a contacts
groups button.
heading
Groups button.
and a groups button for if I have multiple groups of contacts. At the top right,
Add button.
there's my add button. We told you that would be at the top right in many cases. It is because I could add a new contact right from here. And you heard that just to the left of that
Contacts heading groups button.
was the contacts heading and the groups
Groups button.
button, which is at the very top left. To the right of the
Add button. Search field.
well, it's not really to the
Double
right.
tap to edit.
You could swipe right from the add button to get to it, but it's really on the next line. And you know that also by hearing that little extra sound when it wraps to the next line.
Add but search. Add but search. Search
Okay.
field.
Now that search field, it said double tap to edit. So that means I can search for any contact that I want. If I have them in my contacts, I can search for them by name. If we swipe right again,
Dictate button.
we can dictate a
Double tap
contact.
to start dictation. Double tap with 2 fingers when finished.
And see, it even tells me how to do that. Double tap to start, and then I could speak John Smith, and then 2-finger double tap to stop dictation. That's that good old magic tap there again. And that's going to let me search with my voice instead of typing a contact that I want to search for. Now, if we keep going to the right,
Section index adjustable.
we're going to learn
Swipe
this.
up or down with 1 finger to adjust the value.
Okay, very important. A brand new type of screen element for us to learn about together. The section index. What this is, it appears in long lists where you might not want to have to swipe through every single contact. I mean, if I swipe to the right,
Matthew Grayson Valbrecht. My card.
that's me, but
A. Heading. Gift. Maryland Allison. Regina Alvarado. Apple Access. Apple Care. Apple Developer. Apple Educate. Apple Incorporate. Apple Store. August Olive. Marlena Off. B. Heading. Fred Baca.
I mean, I can swipe through every contact if I wanted to, but if I want to get down to Z, that's going to take a while. So the table, what used to be called table index in prior versions to, I think, version 13, and is now called the section index. The section index allows us to quickly swipe by letter of the alphabet. All right. The section index is located on the right-hand side of the screen. Maybe a little, let's see.
Section index.
Not quite halfway down the screen, a little above that. You can also swipe to it, as I showed you a moment ago. And it's a value adjuster. So if I start swiping down,
B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, selected.
all right, so now I'm on the M's, and I can lift my finger up, and I can...
Morgan Marshall, Cecily Martz, Michael Maslow, Kimberly May Smith, MCAB's Super Sub.
Okay, so I can simply, I can swipe through these now that I've landed on the letter that I wanted, okay? And again, all I did was 1 finger swipe down through the section index to go to the next letter of the alphabet, or 1 finger swipe up to go to the previous.
Morgan Marshall, section index, L, K, J, selected.
All right, and then we just lift our
selected.
finger and we touch.
Chastity Jackson, Bob J, Tammy J,
Okay, so it's as simple as that, and that's one of the nicest ways in a long list like this, if there's a section index, to go ahead and scroll through. Now you can also use, we taught you that 3-finger scroll up and down gesture. That also works here. All right, I can just,
Rows 185 to 203 of 400. Diagram, people. Diagram, people. Diagram, people. Rows 219 to 238 of 413. Alvin Mack, Suzanne Milton. Brandy Mixel.
And so there again, now I'm seeing, further down in the alphabet because I swiped with 3 fingers up and down. And remember how we told you when you want to go further down on the page, you actually 3-finger swipe up, because if you think about like reading a book or a magazine and you're pushing it away from you,
dimmed.
That's what we're doing here. So that is the 3-finger swipe. Okay, up and down. You could do that.
Brandy mix that.
Okay. Now, that is, if I want any of these and I want to actually interact with them, like
Shari Mayan Miller, Jeff Millage, Microsoft Xbox support, Kay Merrill, Alvin Mackis, Noah Mex,
okay,
Monica Mex, Corey Mex, Bobby Miracle, Denny McLaughlin,
let's say
Sherry
I wanna
McFruder,
call
Courtney
one of
McDonald,
these.
Mike McCullough, Chris MC Kimberly, MC
Here we'll call this sub place, this restaurant, it's super subs. We won't really call them, but
MCAB's Super Sub.
if we double tap on it,
MCAB's Super Sub. Actions
now,
available.
what do you imagine is in the upper left-hand corner of the screen? Well, let me show you.
Contacts, back button.
It's the back button, just like we told you it would be. There's a back button now in the upper left because I'm inside of a contact card. So if we swipe to the right,
Edit button.
there's an edit button, and that button
Edit button.
is located on the top right of the screen now, and it allows me to edit the contact card if I need to change any information about it. If I continue to swipe right,
MCAB's Super Message button.
if I had
Swipe up or down to select a custom.
okay, we won't do that. But if I had a way message them, then I could double tap that and it would open up the Messages app, and I could start composing a new iMessage or text message, which we're going to learn about messages later this week and into next week. If I swipe to the right again,
Call button.
I can give them a call. I just double tap on it and it's going to give them a call. If I have more than one phone number, it's going to ask me which phone number I want to call. All right, and I keep swiping right.
Video dimmed button.
And I could make a FaceTime video call to them, except Apple can tell, iOS can tell that their phone number is not going to support FaceTime because it's probably just a landline. It's a business. And so I can't. It's grayed out. But if it were available, I could double tap that.
Mail dimmed button.
And I don't have an email address for them. So let's find something where I have a little more.
Contacts, back but contact, MCAB subgroups, section index, adjustable.
Let's go down here.
U, select V,
Okay.
Edward Volbrecht.
Go to one of my parents. I won't let their information actually be read out to you, but.
Edward Volbrecht. Message button.
See, I can message him.
Button. FaceTime, video button.
See, it's available.
Swipe
and
up or down to
it knows it's FaceTime, so it's no longer dimmed.
Mail button.
I can email them because I have their email address.
Pay button.
I can pay them. I send them money with Apple Pay. We're going to learn how to do that later on in the course.
iPhone 7-1.
And now it's reading their phone number to me, which of course I interrupted it, but it will, if I want to hear what their phone number is, it'll read that's their iPhone number.
Home 7-1. FaceTime.
Their home phone number. Then it says FaceTime. I'm just swiping right with one finger.
FaceTime video call button. FaceTime audio call button.
So I have the option right here of initiating a FaceTime video call and a FaceTime audio call. For those who are completely brand new to this, we will define those in just a moment. That actually is also being taught on probably next Monday, but we will define them here in a moment.
Home, e-info Brett, iCloud, e-info email, e-info ringtone, emergency bypass on.
Okay. So I have their home email, their iCloud email, 3 different email addresses for my dad there. It said ringtone.
Text tone, emergency bypass on.
And text tone. And it says emergency bypass on. Again, that's for later in the course. We're not really going to teach that today, but just to explain what that means, it means they can reach me no matter what. So even if I have a focus mode on, like do not disturb, they can still get through and they can still get a hold of me.
Home, 700. Birthday, July 20. Wife, Catherine. Notes.
See, so I have their birthday, their home address, and their and well, that's my dad, and of course my mom, his wife, is linked to him, so it shows that who she is as well.
Notes, text
and
field.
I don't have any notes about
Send
them.
message.
Down here at the bottom, I can send them a message.
Button, gift card, share contact.
I can share the contact.
Add to favorites.
Add them to favorites.
Button. Add to emergency contacts.
I can add them to emergency contacts. Now that's different from emergency bypass. Emergency contacts will show up on your lock screen in the event that you would call emergency services or something. If somebody had access to your phone, they would not need the passcode or anything to see your medical ID and your emergency contacts.
Stop sharing my location.
I share my location with them, which again, we'll learn about that later, but I can stop doing that if I don't want to do it.
Button. Block this caller.
And I can block them.
Tab bar, favorites, tab.
And that is it. So, very extensive, which is what I want to talk about. But first, let's go back.
Contacts, back button.
Remember, that was in the upper left-hand corner of the screen.
Contact Edward Volbrecht Groups, button.
Okay. And so, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to take a moment or two for us on the team to talk about contacts, because you just saw some really good details there, okay? You just saw some important information as we scrolled through that contact. And what we see is that I had birthdays in there. I had his address. I had all of this information. Now I want to demonstrate something for you.
3:25 p.m. 3 notifications.
Here's my iPhone.
Batteries, widget, stack, Matthew's iPhone, 9.
Now, I don't know if this is going to work, truthfully, because Siri uses different output than the regular voiceover speech on the iPhone. But let's just try this. When is my son's birthday?
Carson Volbrecht's birthday is 169 days away on March 29th.
Okay? You all heard that. So, again, how...
Matthew's app.
There we go. How does it know that stuff? How does it know if you say, take me home? Or remind me to pick up milk when I pass the grocery store? Remind me to, call the instructor team when I get to work? How does it know who your wife is, your husband, your children? How does it know when their birthday is? How does it know where work and home are? All of these kinds of questions have the same answer, which is you gotta have it set up in your contacts. Now, the grocery store one, a bit of an exception, because you may be able to do that using just Apple Maps, but it's not going to know where your home is or your place of work unless you specify it somewhere. So for every person who has an Apple device with an Apple ID, you will have a contact card. Okay, and if not, you can create one, and then you can tell Siri that it's you. You can associate that with you by going to Settings and Siri. But everybody has a contact card. The important thing to do is to fill it out properly, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. Before I do, let me also say, when you get contact information from other people, again, same deal. The important thing to do is to fill out their contact cards properly as well. And this is one of the biggest things that I think the visually impaired community has had to learn. I know I did, because for years we got it wrong. And it really wasn't our fault. It was the fault of the device manufacturers who made devices that only had, 3 or 4 fields for contacts. Even by the time that, the internet was a thing and there were email addresses and stuff, a lot of these only had like a memo field. and people could put an address or an email
328.
address.
Try again.
Sorry about that, guys. People could put, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this.
328. Speech off.
Okay. That way I can leave my phone connected, but VoiceOver won't talk. Anyway, so, you might have had a memo field and you had to make a choice. Am I going to use it for a home address, a work address, an email address? What else am I going to? I mean, it was like crazy. And some of these devices, like you remember the Parrot VoiceMate, they didn't even have like a written memo field because they didn't have a QWERTY keyboard. So what you had was a spoken thing, and you could record their address, but you don't know what people were doing, and then the other thing we did, and really the Microsoft Windows platform didn't help with this. The other thing we were doing is we were putting in our contacts in weird ways, like I would just put Rita, and I wouldn't, put her last name or Cliff or Lynn or, Sarah. I wouldn't fill out that information. Or if we knew both people, like I used to have my parents in there as mom and dad. Well, what is that? That is not the way to get your contacts set up. The proper way to set up your contacts is to have a separate contact card for every single person, even if they are married, even if they are the children of, other people and they still live with their parents, whatever the case may be. The proper way to fill out contacts is to have a separate contact card for every single person, even in a family. And what you could do, like, there are options then to link them together, or to not even link them together, but, to indicate that they are, that they're, related to one another. Okay. That's how I had my dad in there. And then it said wife and it had my mom's name. You can tell your device and so forth that they are related to one another, so that there's a connection there. And you can also specify how they are related to you. All right. So that way, that if you tell Siri, call my mom, it knows who that is and she'll actually do it, or Siri will actually do it. But the thing is, all of that depends on you setting up a proper contact card. So what are the components, the building blocks of a proper contact card? Well, first of all, I already told you one of them, a separate one for every person. Okay? If it's not an individual's name, do not put the business name in the first or last name field. Okay? Use the business, the company field instead. You can leave first and last name blank if it's just a business. All right. I've got a mall in here. I've got a hair salon in here. I've got restaurants in here. None of those have individual names. I just have a company name. And when you were looking through the contact list with me, when we were doing that together a few minutes ago, you noticed that it is sorted by, well, let me rephrase that. The way that it's displayed is first name and then last name, but it is sorted by last name. So when I swiped over and you heard a name that said, let's see.
The MCAB sub shop.
Right. And that was a business name. It didn't have a first and a last name, so it's still sorted that way. And then when I did have first and last names, they weren't, like you heard one that said Courtney McDonald, but it was found in the M's. Okay. And so all of these they're gonna be sorted that way. Okay. But the first name can still be displayed first. Now you can also change that under settings and contacts. Like for some reason that drives my mom crazy and she wants to actually see the last name before the first name. So she has switched that in her settings. So you have these options, okay? But anyway, you want to fill out either, if it is an individual person, you want to fill out their first name and their last name. And if it's a business name, don't use the first name or the last name field. Use the company field. Now, what if you have a situation where you actually do have both? You have a business name, but there's a specific person that you work with at that business all the time. What do you do then? Well, you have a couple of options. All right, you could fill in all three fields, but here it is very interesting. Order matters now. So if I am filling in a business name and a first and last name, it's personal preference, but I probably want the contact to appear as its business name. I might not remember, who Melanie Smith is unless I see that she works for, whatever the business name is. So I still probably want it displayed by the business name, not by Melanie's name. So what I do is when I am creating the contact card, I actually don't enter the first and last name first. I go to the company name field, I double tap in there, and I type, Citibank, okay? Whatever. I just couldn't think of a business name real quick. So I type that first. Then I go to the first name field and I type Melanie. And then I go to the last name field and I type Smith. What this does is it forces the Contacts app to display the business name in sorting and instead of Melanie Smith's name. So if I do it the opposite way, if I add a new contact and I type Melanie and then Smith and then Citibank, it's going to display it by Melanie Smith. But if I go to the contact field, contact app, create a new contact, and I skip over the first and last name field, just go to the company name field, I enter that first, then I go back and enter Melanie Smith. Believe it or not, that affects the sorting, and that will allow it to sort by the actual company name, but yet still include an individual person's name. So if you ever have a situation where you need to do that, that is also doable. Order matters, okay, the way you enter the information. All right, so let's continue. We're still talking about the building blocks of a proper contact card. We've established one for every person. Use both the first and last name fields unless you are only going to use the business name, in which case don't use the first and last name fields. Put the business name where it belongs in company name. All right, the next important building blocks are proper specificity of what type of thing you're going to be creating. So when I'll actually demonstrate this. I'm going to pretend I'm creating a contact here. I'm going to go into the phone app, and there is a separate contacts app as well, but it's kind of
Dock, phone, 4 new items,
no different, okay?
tab bar, selected, contacts, tab,
So I'm already in the contacts tab, and I'm going to pretend.
add, button. Text field is editing. Text field is editing. First name, character mode, insertion point at start.
So here's my first name field, right?
Cap
and we could
O-A-N,
John.
space, John, space.
All right, I'll
John's,
all right,
Cat
let's
J,
go over
add
here.
photo, first name,
First of all, you could add a photo.
add photo, button, image, a gray circle with a white X on it, Cap J,
That's
actions available.
certainly not necessary, but it can be helpful.
First name, text field, is editing, John, clear text, button.
I can clear that if I, want to start over and enter it again.
Last name, text field, insertion point at end.
All right, I've gone into the last name
Cap
field.
S, Cap N-I-T-H.
We'll enter Smith, okay? Now,
Add photo, first name, John, text, last name, text field, is editing, Smith, character mode, insertion point at end.
and again, we're going to teach you how to insert text, enter text on Wednesday.
Clear text, button.
There's another clear text button. That's another predictable pattern. A lot of your edit fields, search fields, and otherwise will have that clear text button. And if you use it, it clears out the entire text field instead of requiring you to have to delete character by character.
Company, text field.
There's
Double
that
tap to edit.
company name field that I told you about. If you're just entering a company, skip over the first and last name fields and enter that company name. All right, now here we go.
Add phone, button.
Okay, does John Smith have a phone number? Yes, he does. In fact, he has a home number, a work number, and an iPhone or mobile number. So I'm going to double tap on add phone to put a phone field here.
Add text field is editing, phone, character mode, insertion point at start.
Now what
Actions
it did,
available. Use the rotor to access misspelled words.
okay, cool. What it did is it actually put me in the edit field for John's phone number, but I don't want to do that yet. I want to swipe to the left one time. This is what I meant about being specific.
Mobile button.
Okay.
Activate to choose type. Swipe up
says,
or down to select a custom action, then double tap to activate.
Activate to choose type. Right now it's set to mobile, but maybe I don't want to do that. I want to double tap on this.
Mobile. Cancel. Label. Heading.
So we can choose a label here.
Edit button.
We can also edit our labels to change what labels are available to pick from. But look,
Search field.
we can even search for a label.
Dictate button.
All right, here they are.
Selected mobile, home, work, school, iPhone, Apple Watch, main, home fax, work fax, pager, other, add custom label,
Look at all those different options. And
alarm monitoring service, notifications, emergency, work mobile, enable FVN plus.
I even have a few of these custom ones that got created from different services or apps. Okay, so if I want this to be John's,
page, work, home, main, Apple, iPhone.
All right. Now, some people will ask the question, what's the difference between mobile and iPhone? Really, there is none. And I believe Trainer Cliff has told us that he does not use the iPhone field. He just puts everything in mobile. I actually do use the iPhone field when they have iPhones because I like to, recognize that right off the bat. But Apple, your device will know anyway. It doesn't really matter. But
iPhone.
just to show you that we can change it, we're going to do that. Double tap.
Add photo button. Image.
So now you see
iPhone button.
There it is.
Text field is editing. Phone. Character mode. Insertion point at start.
So we can
Actions
enter.
available. Use the rotor to access misspelled words.
All kinds of fields there. Home, work. There was even a main, which is great for companies, right? All right. So here's John Smith's phone number.
212-555-1212.
Okay, there's John's phone number.
First name. Laptop.
That was the weather.
iPhone. Text field is editing. 212-555-1212. Character mode. Insertion point at end. Actions available. Use the clear text
And
button.
then you can clear that out. And
Actions.
now look,
Add phone button.
we can add another phone, okay? If we are
Megan
not...
Kathleen Wizzle.
Sorry
Answer
about
call
that.
button.
All right,
Megan Kathleen Wizzle.
Wait a second there. That's not a problem. But if we had another phone number, we could hit add phone again, and it's going to put another
Company. Tech clear text. Add phone button. Add text field is editing. Phone.
Now maybe this is his home number, so we'll swipe to the left.
Mobile button.
Double tap.
Mobile. Cancel. Label. Edit. Search. Select. Home. Work. Home.
Put home in there. Okay.
First name. John.
And again, I can.
I've 200. Home button. Text field is editing. Phone.
I could enter his home number. Now, if we keep going to the right,
Add phone button.
we could add another phone number. Then
Add email button.
we can add email. And again, we can add multiple emails. It's the same kind of thing. I don't need to, take up your valuable time showing it to you because it's the same. You can double tap on it. It'll bring up an edit field for the email address. But if you swipe left, you'll be able to change the label. Home email, work email, iCloud email, school email, maybe, all these different ones, or create your own. And so you can add as many email addresses as you need to.
Ringtone default.
Here's where we can choose the ringtone, and we can choose whether they are emergency bypass compatible, meaning if it's somebody that's, one of your children or your parents or maybe your security system company or something, you turn on emergency bypass for the ringtone, which means that you will always get calls from them no matter what, even if Do Not Disturb is on, even if you're in another focus mode, even if your switch is set to silent or mute instead of to ring, and that, you're still going to get a sound. That's the most aggressive way to let people through. There are slightly less aggressive ways to put them in as people exceptions within a focus, but that's for later. All right, but that's where your emergency bypass is. And you can choose the ringtone that's associated with that particular contact. So you can have a different ringtone for each person if you wanted to.
Text tone default.
All right, same thing again. Here, we can choose the text tone, and we can choose whether their text messages are also in emergency bypass. It is two separate things, so do not forget that. I made that mistake whenever I put my wife in emergency bypass for phone calls, and then she was trying to text me, and it was not an emergency, praise God, but she just was trying to text me something, and she wanted a reply, and I didn't see the reply because I still had, sleep mode or do not disturb. It was, early in the morning, and she was going to work. And later on, she said, why didn't you get my text message? And I said, well, I don't know. You're in emergency bypass. Well, I had not put her in to the text message emergency bypass. I had only put her in the phone call under ringtone. So if you want both, you have to turn it on for both. And again, I can choose a custom text tone as well.
Add URL button.
Okay, we can add a URL. And again, you can choose different ones here. But this could be for the website of the company or an individual person's website.
Add address button.
You can add their address, home, work, etc. More than one if you need
Add
it.
birthday button.
There's where you add their birthday.
Add date button.
There's where you add another date of importance, maybe an anniversary.
Add related name button.
There's where you add related name. Like, look at these options
Add
here.
text field. Add related name button. Text field is
There's
editing.
the
Related
edit
name.
field.
Insertion point at start.
There's the edit field. If I swipe left,
Mother button.
double tap
Activate to cancel button.
that. I think there might be several hundred of these. I'm not going to go through all of them.
Edit, search, dictate, selected, father, selected, mother, father, parent, brother, sister, son, daughter, child, friend, spouse, partner, assistant, manager, other, all labels button.
And I can hit all labels to get even more. All right, upper left-hand corner of the screen.
Cancel button.
That's where,
Label, head, cancel button.
that's where we're going to go. It doesn't
Cancel
actually
button.
doesn't actually say back, but it is the same thing. It took us out of that label screen.
Add related name button.
So there's that button again.
Add social profile button.
We can add social profiles, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, all sorts of things.
Add instant message button.
Actually, that's where you'd add WhatsApp, I suppose, under instant message, not under social. Sorry.
Notes.
You can add
Notes. Text field. Double
private
tap to
notes.
edit. Use the
Private-
rotor to access
private notes that only you see related to this contact, okay?
Add field.
We can add a custom field or a different field. Maybe there are others available that we want to choose from.
Cap Q.
All right, and then that's
Quebec.
it. So when we're done,
Done button.
we hit done to save the contact or
Cancel button. Home alert. Are you sure you want to discard this new contact? Discard changes button. Keep editing button.
we're going to
Discard
discard.
change.
But if
Home
we had
dash
wanted
FAZ.
to, we could actually
3:46 p.m.
we could actually have kept the the contact by hitting done, and we would have saved it. So
If you create a detailed contact card for yourself with your birth date, your family members, your relationships, your addresses, and so forth in all of those fields, then Siri, you could say to Siri, hey, Siri, give me directions home, or hey, Siri, what's so-and-so's birthday, my brother or whatever. And so I strongly suggest you create a contact card that's extremely detailed for yourself. Then create a second contact card that's just one you're willing to share with the world. Just your name, your email, or your name and your phone, whatever you want. Okay. And then when someone says, hey, can I have your contact information? You go to that second contact card. And when you're in the Contacts app, as you open the Contacts app, you'll see two contacts cards for yourself. Okay. Because you've created two. And one of them will say me, like it'll say Rita Howells, me. That's the one with all my detail. Okay. The next one is just Rita Howells, and it's just got my name and my email, say, for example. And that's the one I'm willing to share with the world. Okay. So again, two contact cards for extremely detailed on the one for yourself, because it'll make your life so much easier if you fill out those fields correctly.
And again, we're stating the obvious here, but you have that option. You have the option of sharing either one. I mean, if you have a child, even a grown-up child, and they ask you, maybe you share the one with all the details, but it wouldn't be something you would share necessarily with a random person or a coworker. The other thing that I want to point out is that, to piggyback off of what Rita said about one of them saying me, how do you make sure that's done if it isn't properly done? You go to Settings, you go to Siri and Search, and as you swipe through the options under Siri and Search, you'll find something called My Info. That is what it's called, right, guys? You do, and you only have to do it once, but that is if it's not knowing who you are, or if you ask Siri that question and he or she doesn't know, you just go into Settings and into Siri and Search, and then you choose My Info, and you pick which contact card is yours. It'll show you your whole list of contacts.
Matt, I done told you about giving students wrong direction. It's not under Siri and search. It's under contact, and then it says my info.
Oh, you can't do it under Siri and search anymore.
Nope, I don't think so. I could be wrong.
Oh, now I got to go look. Okay, but
I'm almost positive
Yes,
that you
now
got to go
now
under
we
contact,
gotta-
and that's where it says my
yeah,
info.
now now
Okay.
the gauntlet has been thrown down. We have to go look.
It is under Siri and search also. It's both
What
places,
is?
the My Info.
My info.
For your, your
Okay.
associated
Gotcha.
your contact.
Yeah, gotcha.
So it's under both. Also, Wednesday, we continue right here with our voiceover in and out. We want to thank you for joining us. God bless you, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Take care.